Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into a stack of writings from, well, the great mind of C.S. Lewis, and we're going to be focusing on a feeling I think we all know, that feeling of unsatisfied longing.
That's right. That constant sense of wanting something more, but you can't quite put your finger on it. And our mission today is to unpack Lewis's pretty radical argument about what that desire really is.
And he has this other really counterintuitive claim, doesn't he, about how to succeed in this life.
He does. The idea that to do well here and now, you actually have to be focused on the next life, it sounds completely backwards.
So let's set the stage. Lewis frames this whole thing around the idea of hope, but not in the way we usually use the word.
Exactly. This isn't about, just wishing for a good outcome. When he talks about hope as a theological virtue, he means it's an active, fundamental part of the Christian life.
Something you're meant to do.
Yes. A deliberate, sustained focus. A continual looking forward to the eternal world.
Okay, but that brings up the immediate objection, right? If your head is always in the clouds, focused on the afterlife, doesn't that make you sort of useless down here on Earth, a bit of an escapist?
That's the modern assumption, 100%. But Lewis just flips that idea completely on its head. He says, look at the historical evidence. It proves the exact opposite.
So this is his paradox of aiming.
That's the one. He argues that the people who did the most for this world were precisely the ones who thought the most about the next one.
So their effectiveness here was somehow tied to their focus being elsewhere.
It's strange, but he says the evidence is undeniable.
Okay, so give us an example, because that really does go against how we tend to think about making a difference.
Well, he starts at the very beginning. Think about the apostles. Their entire focus was on the coming kingdom of God.
Right.
And yet, what did they do? They started a movement that completely reshaped the entire Roman Empire. Law, society, morality, everything changed.
Okay, that's a big one. What else?
Then he points to the great figures of the Middle Ages, the people who built the universities, the monasteries, the ones who preserved knowledge through the Dark Ages. What was driving them?
A vision of eternity.
Precisely. And he brings it into the modern era, too. He talks about the English evangelicals, people like William Wilberforce.
The ones who abolished the slave trade.
Yes. They were intensely, almost obsessively focused on their eternal souls. But that deep, powerful conviction is exactly what fueled them to take on this monstrous earthly institution. Their moral seriousness came from thinking about infinite stakes.
Wow. So the scale of their earthly work was actually proportional to the scale of their eternal focus.
And this leads him to lay out this strange rule of human life. He puts it very bluntly.
What's the rule?
Aim at heaven and you will get earth thrown in. Aim at earth and you will get neither.
That's a bold statement. So if your only goal is to improve this world, you fail at even that.
That's his argument. He says that in his time, Christians had largely stopped thinking about the other world, and because of that, they'd become almost totally ineffective in this one.
And what's so fascinating is he says this isn't just a religious rule, it's a principle that works everywhere.
Absolutely. He says you can see this same strange logic in all sorts of other areas of life.
Like what? How does this apply to something, totally non-spiritual?
He gives the example of health.
Oh.
Health is obviously a good thing, a blessing. But the minute you make health your main direct goal, the thing you obsess over.
You become that person, the one who's always counting calories, tracking their sleep score to the decimal.
Yes, he calls that person a crank, someone who's so worried about being healthy they can't just enjoy life. And he says real health is something you get indirectly.
By wanting other things more.
Exactly. By wanting to enjoy good food or play a game or just get outside. You get health thrown in when you aim for life itself.
That makes perfect sense. And he scales that idea up, too.
All the way up to civilization itself. He says we'll never save civilization as long as saving civilization is our main goal.
Because it's too small a goal.
It's too small to inspire the kind of sacrifice and courage required. You have to want something even more than civilization to have the strength to preserve it.
But this all comes back to being able to actually want that something more.
Right.
And if we're being honest, for a lot of people, heaven feels, a bit abstract, apart from wanting to see loved ones again.
He tackles that directly. He says there are two main reasons we struggle to want it. The first is just a lack of training.
What does he mean by that?
I mean, our whole education, our whole culture, it's designed to fix our minds on this world, on the material, the measurable. We basically lose the vocabulary for thinking about eternity.
We're not taught how to even imagine it.
Right. And the second reason is, I think, even more interesting. He says that when the real desire for heaven actually shows up inside us, we usually don't even recognize it for what it
We
is.
misinterpret the signal. Okay, let's dig into that because this feels like the core of his argument, this unrecognized longing.
He says that if most people were truly honest with themselves, if they really looked into their own hearts, they'd find that they want and want acutely something that this world just can't provide.
And he's not talking about bad experiences, is he? He's not saying this happens because your marriage failed or you lost your job.
No, and this is so crucial. He's talking about the best possible experiences life has to offer. Those moments of intense, almost painful yearning.
Like the first moment you fall in love.
Or the first time you see a truly breathtaking view, or you dive into a subject that just blows your mind.
Those moments feel like they hold this incredible promise.
An immense promise. But what happens next? Even if it all works out, the marriage is good, the vacation is wonderful, the career is fascinating.
There's still something missing.
Lewis says that something we grasped at in that first moment of longing just fades away in the reality. Something has evaded us. The pleasure was real, but that ultimate fulfillment we thought was coming, it slipped through our fingers.
The universal feeling of slippage.
Right. And how we respond to that feeling, that universal fact, is what defines us. Lewis says there are basically two wrong ways to handle it and one right way.
Okay, so let's walk through them. What's the first wrong way?
He calls it the fool's way. This is the person who blames the things themselves.
So they think, oh, the marriage didn't satisfy me, so I need a new partner. Or this country wasn't it, so I need to travel somewhere else.
Precisely. They spend their entire lives chasing that mysterious something by just getting a new woman, a new continent, a new hobby. They think the next thing will finally be the one.
And they're always disappointed.
Always. He says most of the bored, discontented rich people in the world are fools. They're trying to squeeze infinite satisfaction out of finite things.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's the second way, the one that's a bit better, but still wrong.
This is the disillusioned, sensible man.
The sensible man.
This person realizes that chasing the next thrill is a fool's game, so they just give up. They decide the whole feeling was moonshine. They stop chasing the rainbow's end and learn to settle.
They repress that part of themselves that wants more, which honestly sounds a lot like what we call maturity.
It does, and Lewis admits this person is happier and less of a nuisance than the fool. But there's a huge risk. This sensible man can become smug, superior.
And what's the long-term risk?
The risk is this. This would be the best way to live if man did not live forever. Lewis warns that it would be a terrible, profound pity to find out, a moment after you die, that your common sense had actually killed the very part of you, the faculty, capable of enjoying infinite happiness.
You traded an infinite possibility for a comfortable, finite life. That's a chilling thought.
It is.
So that brings us to the third way, the Christian way. This is his famous argument from Desire.
Yes. And it's built on a really simple, logical premise about how we're made.
Which is,
Creatures are not born with desires unless satisfaction for those desires exists.
okay, unpack that.
It's just biology, really. A baby feels hunger.
Yeah.
And there is such a thing as food. A duckling wants to swim. And there is such a thing as water. Men feel desire. And there is such a thing as sex.
Every natural inborn desire corresponds to a real satisfaction.
Right. So here's the pivot. If I find in myself a desire that no experience in this world can satisfy, this deep, persistent, unquenchable longing, what's the most probable explanation?
That you were made for another world.
Exactly. The desire isn't a mistake. It's a honing signal. It's proof that you were made for something more than what you see around you.
So the dissatisfaction we feel isn't a sign that the universe is broken. It's actually a clue to how it's designed.
It's a clue. And it means earthly pleasures have a very specific job. They were never meant to be the main course.
There's just the appetizer.
That's a great way to put it. Lewis says their job is simply to arouse the desire, to suggest the real thing. They're just a copy or an echo or a mirage of the real satisfaction that's waiting.
So, given that, how are we supposed to live? How do we enjoy the good things of life, the echoes, without getting trapped?
He says you have to do two things at once. First, you must never despise or be unthankful for earthly blessings. The echo is a gift. You should enjoy it.
But at the same time,
You must never mistake it for the real thing it's pointing to. The moment you ask a finite pleasure to give you infinite satisfaction, you're back on the fool's path and you're guaranteed to be disappointed.
now we have to talk about how people react to this idea. Lewis was very aware of the critics, the people who try to make the idea of heaven sound ridiculous.
Oh, yes, the facetious people, as he called them. The ones who say, oh, I don't want to spend all of eternity just sitting on a cloud playing a harp.
And Lewis's response to that was pretty blunt.
It was very sharp. He basically says if you can't understand books written for adults, you probably shouldn't talk about them. He makes it clear that all that imagery, the harps, the crowns, the gold, it's all symbolic.
It's poetry trying to describe something that's literally indescribable.
Yes. Think about the symbols. Why a harp? Because music is one of the few things humans experience that suggests pure ecstasy and infinity without being tied to a physical need. It's a symbol of transcendent joy.
And the crowns.
Crowns aren't about being a king. They're about sharing in God's splendor, his power, his joy. And gold isn't there because heaven is materialistic. Gold is there because it doesn't rust. It suggests timelessness, preciousness, permanence.
So these are all just pointers, not blueprints.
Absolutely. And he has this killer final analogy to make the point. He says people who take these symbols literally might as well think that when Jesus told us to be like doves, he meant we should go and lay eggs.
Right. It's obviously a metaphor for being gentle, not a biological instruction.
It forces you to look for the meaning behind the image.
So if we pull this all together, Lewis is giving us two huge takeaways. First, that constant feeling of wanting something more isn't a problem to be solved. It's evidence. It's proof we were made for another world.
And second, the great paradox, that the best way to make a real, lasting impact on this world is to make the next world your primary focus. He says the main object of life is just to press on to what he calls our true country.
Which really forces you to rethink your priorities, doesn't it? What you're aiming for each day.
It does, and if he's right that our greatest earthly pleasures are just echoes, just hints. Well, that leaves a final thought for you, the listener, to take away from this.
What's that?
Just reflect on your own life for a moment. What is the one specific longing? Maybe it's for perfect love or absolute beauty or total peace that has most consistently promised you ultimate satisfaction, but has always, in the end, faded or left you wanting more. And what does that persistent, nagging disappointment? What does it really tell you about the destiny you were truly made for?